New Zealand's story begins deep in geological time, long before the first humans ever set foot on its shores. This is a land shaped by forces far older than memory, where the Earth itself has been the main character in a drama spanning millions of years. Around 85 million years ago, the land we now call New Zealand broke away from the ancient supercontinent of Gondwana. This fragment, known as Zealandia, slowly drifted into the vastness of the Pacific Ocean, carrying with it a unique geological legacy. For millions of years, Zealandia drifted in isolation, shaped by powerful volcanic eruptions, frequent earthquakes, and the relentless movement of tectonic plates. The land was pushed, pulled, and twisted, creating a landscape of dramatic contrasts and raw beauty. This isolation was more than just distance. It was a crucible, forging a land unlike any other on Earth. The landscape is dramatic, marked by steep mountains, deep valleys, and wild, untamed coasts. Towering mountains like the Southern Alps split the South Island, their peaks capped with snow and ice, while volcanoes and geothermal fields dot the north. Island bubbling and steaming with energy from deep within the Earth. Glaciers carved out deep fjords and valleys, leaving behind a landscape of breathtaking beauty. Dense forests, misty lakes, and wild, rugged coastlines grew from this ancient turmoil, creating habitats for countless unique species. The land itself feels young and restless, always changing, never quite settled. Earthquakes still shake the ground, and volcanoes occasionally remind us of the fiery forces below. This restless geology created isolated pockets where life could evolve in unique and surprising ways. With no land mammals apart from bats and few natural predators, birds and plants took on extraordinary forms. Some birds lost the ability to fly, while plants developed unusual shapes and defences. The land's isolation wrote itself into the DNA of every living thing. New Zealand's geological story is one of fire and water, upheaval and calm, a place where nature's creativity has flourished in remarkable ways. This ancient, ever-changing land set the stage for everything to come, from the evolution of the flightless kiwi to the arrival of the first people who would call these islands home, shaping their own stories atop this restless earth. Isolation shaped New Zealand's living world long before humans set foot on its shores. For millions of years, these islands drifted alone in the vastness of the Pacific, untouched by the outside world. Cut off from other continents, life here followed a different path, evolving in splendid isolation. The land became a living laboratory where evolution took unexpected turns. Birds became the rulers of the land, filling roles that mammals held elsewhere. Their songs and calls echoed through ancient forests, shaping the soundscape of these wild islands. Without mammalian predators, many birds lost the ability to fly, becoming ground dwellers. They grew larger, bolder, and more diverse, adapting to every niche. The giant moa, a flightless bird that stood up to 3 meters tall, grazed the forest like living dinosaurs, shaping the vegetation with every step. The kiwi's shy and secretive, evolved to feed at night, its whiskers searching the leaf litter for insects and worms. Its keen sense of smell is unique among birds. The towering kauri and podocarp forests covered much of the north, their ancient trunks rising like pillars in a green cathedral. These forests are among the oldest on Earth. Ferns grew lush and plentiful, some as tall as small trees, creating a prehistoric atmosphere. Their fronds unfurled in the damp shade, sheltering countless creatures. On rocky alpine slopes, tiny hardy plants clung to life, shaped by freezing winds and thin soil. These survivors paint the mountains with bursts of colour each spring. Nowhere else in the world do so many species exist that are found nowhere else. Each valley and forest holds creatures found only in New Zealand, a testament to its isolation. The absence of mammals made New Zealand's creatures both bold and vulnerable. Many birds showed little fear, never having faced land predators before. The only native mammals were 2 species of bat, flitting silently through the twilight, filling a role that elsewhere belonged to rodents and shrews. Birds like the kakapo, a giant brown parrot, thrived in this safe world. With no need to fly, it became heavy and nocturnal, living a life unlike any other parrot. But this safety was fragile, destined to be shattered by new arrivals. The coming of humans and their animals would change everything, forever altering the balance. This evolutionary experiment is both a wonder and a warning. It shows the beauty of nature's creativity, but also its fragility in the face of sudden change. New Zealand's isolation created a treasure trove of life, but it also made that life deeply vulnerable to change. Protecting these unique ecosystems is now more important than ever, as the world grows ever more connected. The first humans to set eyes on New Zealand came from the sea. Skilled Polynesian navigators, ancestors of today's Māori, crossed the Pacific in double-hulled canoes. Guided by stars, currents, and a flood of birds, they journeyed vast distances, bringing with them knowledge, plants, and animals. Their arrival, around the 13th century, was a turning point. The newcomers, called the land Aotearoa, the land of the long white cloud. They brought timora, taro, and dog and rat species for food and companionship. Quickly, they adapted their ways to suit this new, cooler, and wetter land. The environment was strange, filled with giant birds, dense forests, and unfamiliar seasons. The Polynesians learned to hunt the moa and gather forest foods. They built fortified villages called pa on hills and headlands for defence. Māori language, stories and spiritual beliefs took new shape, blending old Polynesian roots with new experiences. This great migration was more than a journey. It was the birth of a new people in a new world, setting the stage for centuries of rich culture and innovation. Māori society was complex and dynamic, built on kinship, land and spiritual connection. Hana, Hapmi and Iwi formed the backbone of social life. Leadership was earned through skill, wisdom and genealogy. Chiefs, or rangatira, guided their people, but decision-making often involved debate and consensus. Land was not just a resource, it was an ancestor, a taonga, and a living link to the past. Every mountain, river and forest had its own story, or wakapapa. The Māori worldview saw people and nature as deeply intertwined. Spiritual guardians, or kaishiaki, watched over places and species, and rituals honoured the balance between the seen and unseen worlds. Society was not static. As groups grew and shifted, competition and alliances shaped the map of Aotearoa. Warfare was common, but so were trade and marriage agreements. Technologies, like the use of stone tools and complex fishing methods, continually evolved. Before Europeans arrived, Māori society had already undergone centuries of change. By the 18th century, distinct Iwi identities, rich oral traditions, and a deep sense of place had taken root. This foundation would be tested and transformed by the next wave of newcomers. The first Europeans to reach New Zealand did so really by accident. In 1642, Dutch explorer Abel Tasman sighted the west coast. His brief encounter ended in violence and retreat, but, his maps put New Zealand on European charts. It wasn't until 1769 that James Cook arrived, mapping the coast in detail and making contact with Māori across both islands. These early meetings were cautious and tense. Māori were curious, but definitely wary of the strangers and their strange ships. Cook's crew traded tools, cloth, and metal goods for food and local knowledge. Some exchanges were peaceful, others, ended in misunderstanding and bloodshed. Trade quickly changed local economies. Iron and steel tools revolutionised farming and carving. Māori began to seek out European goods, weaving them into their own lives. New crops like potatoes and pigs spread rapidly, changing diets and farming practices. European presence was still light, but the seeds of change had been planted. New Zealand was now part of a global network, and the effects would soon be felt in every village and bay. The arrival of muskets in the early 1800s brought a storm of violence that would forever alter the course of Māori history. These powerful new weapons, introduced through trade with Europeans, quickly became highly sought after by many Iwi, or tribes, across Aotearoa. Māori tribes who gained access to these new weapons gained a huge advantage over their rivals, shifting the balance of power almost overnight. The musket was not just a tool of war, but a symbol of status and survival in a rapidly changing world. The result was a series of brutal and far-reaching conflicts known as the Musket Wars, which raged across the country from about 1807 to the 1840s. These wars touched nearly every corner of New Zealand, leaving few communities untouched by their violence. Unlike earlier wars, fought with wooden weapons and guided by strict codes of conduct, musket warfare was devastating and unpredictable. The old ways of fighting could not withstand the destructive power of gunfire. Villages were destroyed, people were killed or enslaved, and whole populations were forced to migrate in search of safety. The trauma of these wars would echo for generations. Some Iwi became powerful, expanding their territories and influence. Others were nearly wiped out, their lands abandoned, and their people scattered. The wars reshaped the political map of Aotearoa, redrawing boundaries and alliances long before Europeans claimed control of the land. The musket wars were not caused by European conquest, but by the rapid adoption of a new technology in a fiercely competitive society. The musket trade itself became a driving force, fueling further conflict as tribes sought to arm themselves. These wars showed the adaptability and resilience of Māori, who learned quickly and fought bravely, but they also exposed deep vulnerabilities and left scars that would take years to heal. By the 1840s, the wars had burned themselves out, leaving behind a changed land and a people searching for new ways forward. Many Māori saw the need for new ways to secure peace and prosperity, turning to negotiation and diplomacy to rebuild their communities and restore balance. This search for stability would make the coming of British rule both a hope for protection and a risk of losing autonomy, setting the stage for a new chapter in New Zealand's history. In 1840, British officials and many Māori chiefs gathered to sign the Treaty of Waitangi. The British wanted to bring New Zealand under their control and protect Māori from lawless settlers. Māori saw a chance to secure their land and gain a powerful ally. The treaty was meant to build trust and partnership, but there were two versions. The English text said Māori would hand over sovereignty to the Queen. The Māori version, however, used words that meant governance or kawanatanga, suggesting shared authority. Māori were promised tino rangatiratanga, full chieftainship, over their lands and treasures. Misunderstandings quickly surfaced. Māori believed they were agreeing to partnership, not submission. The British saw the treaty as a legal transfer of power. Disputes over land sales, legal rights, and the meaning of promises soon followed. The Treaty of Waitangi became the heart of debate, grievance, and hope in New Zealand's history. Its words would be fought over in courts, Parliament, and on the streets for generations to come. After the treaty, British settlement exploded. New towns sprang up. Settlers wanted land, lots of it. The government pressured Māori to sell, often using unfair deals or outright force. As land changed hands, Māori communities lost not just property but their connection to ancestors and identity. Tensions grew into open conflict. From the 1840s to the 1870s, the New Zealand Wars raged. Māori resisted the seizure of their land and the destruction of their culture. Some fought on the battlefield, others used legal and political means. Despite fierce resistance, British forces, backed by settlers and new technologies, gradually prevailed. The consequences were dire. Vast areas of fertile land were confiscated. Entire iwi were pushed into poverty. The social fabric of Māori life was torn apart, and the scars would last for generations. Colonial law and culture dominated, but Māori identity survived. Even in defeat, communities found ways to adapt and endure, keeping language, traditions, and hope alive beneath the surface of colonial New Zealand. Despite hardship, New Zealand built something new. Railways, schools, and cities linked the islands. Women won the right to vote in 1893, the first country in the world to do so. Social reforms like pensions and workers' rights made New Zealand a model of fairness. The country sent soldiers to world wars, forging an Anzac identity and a sense of independence from Britain. But the pain of land loss and inequality lingered. From the 1970s, a Māori renaissance began. Protests at places like Bastion Point forced the nation to confront its history. The Waitangi Tribunal was created to investigate treaty breaches and recommend redress. Te Rea Māori, the language, and traditional arts enjoyed a revival, and landmark settlements began to address old wrongs. Today, New Zealand is a blend of Māori, British, and many other cultures. Kiwis balance growth, sustainability, and justice. The story is not finished. Each generation faces the challenge of honouring the past while building something new. New Zealand's history is a story of fire, flight, and future. A land and people always changing, always resilient, and always looking ahead.